with so many iconic TV sleuths entertaining us over the years. It's no wonder we see private investigators as exciting and mysterious. But away from his detective work, 37-year-old James Cappello, known as Jim, was just a regular husband and dad. Jim owned the Cappello Investigative Agency in Huntsville, Alabama, and put in long hours trying to help people. He'd been married to Marjorie Nicole Cappello, known as Nikki, and a nurse at a local healthcare facility, for 8 years, and they had a 4-year-old daughter. The couple had recently bought a new home that they planned on renovating. But while they seemed happy, cracks were starting to show in their marriage. Jim confided in family that he believed Cappello had developed an addiction to narcotics after taking painkillers for a back injury. Others had witnessed her falling asleep at odd times, even during meals. It was in Jim's nature to seek out the truth, and he admitted to relatives that he'd started to investigate his own wife, if he could prove that she was an addict. He believed he could build a case to get custody of their daughter if they split up. He even spoke to his sister, Jamie, about putting a tracker on Cappello's car and had been going through her bags to find evidence. Then, when Jim didn't turn up for work on the 21st of September 2018, he was reported missing. As the police got involved, they discovered he was having an affair with a colleague. Had Jim left his life with Cappello to be with her? It seemed unlikely. He wouldn't walk away from the daughter he adored. And there was no evidence that was his plan. And, worryingly, he'd spoken to his sister on the 19th of September and sounded unwell. Shocking premonition. On the 22nd of September, Cappello made a disturbing call to a friend. She said Jim wasn't just missing, he was dead. She claimed that she'd killed him with insulin and begged for help getting rid of his body. Before backtracking on her story and hanging up the phone. Stunned, the woman called the police and reported what she'd been told. Officers went to Jim's house and surrounded the building to cover all the exits. Jim's car was parked outside. When they knocked on the front door, Cappello answered, and the officers were immediately struck by the stench of a decomposing body. Around the back, another officer saw a freshly dug hole in the ground. Was it a grave? There was a muddy shovel and muddy women's shoes there, too. Cappello was on edge. She agreed they could come into the house, but not the garage. After they got a search warrant, Jim's body was discovered on the floor of the garage. He was on his back, lying on a sheet of tarpaulin with his feet up on the floor of a car, like he was being loaded into it. Cappello was taken in for questioning. "You know I went inside?" the officer said. "You know I found him, right?" Quote. Cappello casually replied, "Yes. I knew he was there." Investigators discovered that Jim had spoken to his family about wanting to leave his wife and that he was building a case so that he could get custody of his daughter. Jim had found a bottle of insulin during his searches and taken a photo of it. He sent it to a friend, unsure what it meant. Neither him nor his wife needed insulin. It can save a diabetic's life, but kill a person who doesn't need it. As a nurse, Cappello would have known that. Police found insulin in the house and syringes in Cappello's bedside cabinet. Investigators went to the health facility Cappello worked at. Her colleagues said she was open about the problems she was having with Jim, and even said that the only way she would be free of him would be if he was dead. Police found insulin was missing, but there was no record of a patient needing it. An autopsy could not detect insulin in Jim's body, but detectives were convinced that was what had killed him. Medical experts explained that insulin would be undetectable by the time the autopsy took place. And needle marks don't always show up during examination. When asked about the insulin during questioning, Cappello said she'd accidentally brought it home. She was charged with murder but released on $100,000 bail. And surrendered her nursing license as she awaited trial. After delays due to the pandemic, Cappello pleaded not guilty in 2020. Meanwhile, Jim's sister Jamie spoke out to the media and revealed a conversation she'd had with her brother. Before he died, Jim had told her that if he was found dead, his wife had killed him. Jamie said she'd shrugged it off at the time, not believing Cappello was capable of murder. Unrepentant killer. At the trial in May this year, much of the evidence was circumstantial. The defense said that without a medical cause of death, it couldn't be proven that there had even been a murder. But the prosecution said all the evidence pointed to Cappello being a killer. They said Cappello had stolen insulin from the hospital to slowly kill her husband. She had been caught when she reached out for help to dispose of the body. And her friend testified about the shocking call she had received. When Cappello was caught, Jim's family were on their way from Florida to look for him and she was under pressure to get his corpse out of the house. During the trial, the court heard about Jim's affair with a colleague. Had Cappello found out and realized she was about to lose her husband and potentially her daughter? After a 4-day trial, it took the jury less than an hour to find Cappello guilty. In July this year, the 33-year-old showed no emotion as she was sentenced to life in prison. Jim's sister now has custody of his daughter. The prosecution said that Cappello was truly unrepentantly evil, and Jim's family will be pursuing a civil case in order to get compensation for his little girl. Being married to a private eye, Cappello would have known it was only a matter of time before her secrets were exposed. Sadly, while Jim had his suspicions and the skills he needed to probe them, his wife killed him before he could finish his investigation.